In today's video, we'll perfect your G grace notes. Stay tuned. Well, hello everybody, I'm Willis Bagpiper, and on this channel I make videos to make you a stronger and more confident piper. If you like this kind of content, please think about giving the video a like, subscribing to the channel, and commenting below with any thoughts you might have. I also teach Skype and online lessons if you want more personalized instruction, but more on that later. In the description below, there's a link to the PDF document we'll be using today, so go ahead, print that out, put it on a tablet, have it in front of you so you can follow along. The G grace note, one of the most important bits of technique we have on our instrument. It is the primary way we give emphasis to so many notes. We use it for both separating notes and changing notes. And today we're specifically going to be changing notes with this G grace note. It's critical that we get this G grace note down because it starts so many of our embellishments, doublings, triplings, strikes. There's a lot of embellishments that have to go in with a strong G grace note to initiate the motion, and often that's the part that people miss the most. And while we've discussed in this basics series here the various grace note changes, I didn't have an episode specifically on just G grace notes, so if that's your issue, that you can focus just on that. So that's what today is all about. You'll see on the exercise sheet here that in the first two lines, this is where we're going to be doing sequential scalic note changes, just one note at a time, going up and then down in a couple of different sequences. I try to make it a little bit more interesting than just a simple scale up and down, and kind of keeps your brain more engaged if you're doing it that way. But let's talk about what we're going to be doing and how we're going to be doing it. To start with, we're going to have a G grace note on low A. So we'll have our fingers in a low A position, G grace note in the air. Again, that's the top pointer finger. As soon as you start blowing, you'll lower that finger smartly down onto the chanter. Then we'll do a G grace note to B. So for this, we want to lift not just the grace note, but we also want to lift the bottom ring finger, because to go to a B involves moving that ring finger. And we're going up with the G grace note. So both of these will come up. But we don't want to camp this guy up in the air. We want, as soon as that finger comes up, for it to return smartly again to the chanter. Now, if the coordination isn't there yet, it's fine to open it up for the time being. Something like, where the grace note's a little longer while you're sorting out how the fingers are moving, which fingers are moving, all of the finger math, if you will. But as soon as you start getting a hold of which fingers are moving, you need to try to, basically, as soon as that G grace note comes off, you want it kind of, again, coming back down. We want that G grace note ultimately to be a percussive sounding motion, not a melodic note that we're trying to hear. Now here, we're going to continue up the scale. We're going to go to a C. Now this time, we're going to raise the middle finger as well as the G grace note finger to go from B to C. But now we have to lower two. We have to lower the grace note, of course, but we also have to lower the pinky. With all of the grace note changing on this, with one exception that we'll get to later. But save that one exception, we're going to lift everything that needs to be lifted at one time to initiate the motion and then lower. So again, from B to C, two are going to come up, one on each hand. This is the grace note, and the middle finger on the bottom to go to the C. Then we're going to lower the grace note and the pinky, because both of those are required to be down to sound a proper C. But again, as soon as you can do the finger math, try to get that G grace note to be a more percussive, swift, smart motion. And then rather than just continuing up the scale, we're going to now go back down to a B with a G grace note. So again, we're going to get to that same position where we have to lift, again, the pointer finger for the G and the pinky, because it's not down for the B, and then lower the middle finger on bottom for the B, and of course the G grace note on top. Then we're going to do the G grace note change back up to C again. We won't review that. We just did that. So now we're on C, and we're going to do a G grace note now to D. So from C to D, we're going to lift both pointers. Top pointer comes down. Pinky won't move on this particular change. Let's get the metronome out, because a metronome is important. Trying to get all of these things good, clean, and in time is critical to your future piping. I have this set at 60 beats per minute, and let's try to get from that first low A to the D that we just talked about. So that's the first 6 notes. Ready, go. And you can hear we're trying to land that percussive grace note sound on the chirp of the metronome. They should kind of sound one in the same at this point in this exercise. The G grace note lands on the beat. If you're tapping your foot, which I also recommend, the grace note will close at the same moment your foot hits the ground. So chum, chum, chum. So your foot and your finger should be smacking down together at the same time with that metronome. So we've made it up to that D. We're going to do a G grace note back to C, pointer finger up, both pointer fingers down. Then again, we're going up to D with a G grace note. You can see there's repetition built into the exercise on purpose so that you get plenty of chances to, well, work through the various changes that we're doing here. Now, we have the big old cross right here from D to E. This is a doozy. So from D, you're going to have to lift 3 fingers, leaving just your middle finger and thumb covering holes. Your bottom thumb will, of course, remain on, but there's no hole there. And then from here, what do you have to lower for an E? The 3 on the bottom, as well as, of course, the grace note on top for an E. This is one worth practicing more than a few times slowly and accurately to make sure that you're moving all the correct fingers. You can get a run in here. That happens when the grace note doesn't lift before the ring finger. You can also get a cross, which is where the bottom hand comes down too quickly. You can hear that low note in there? That's what happens when you lower before you lift. So I said way back in one of the earlier episodes, the golden rule of piping in this method that I have here is that you want to lift before you lower. We're on D, we're lifting, 3 fingers, 2 on top, 1 on bottom, lowering 4 fingers, 1 on top, 3 on bottom. When you can do, again, the finger math for that, go ahead, try to speed it up. And then from there, we go straight back to D. You're going to go back to that same finger position, the thumb, middle finger on top, and thumb on bottom only. And then we're lowering back to a D, the other 2 on top, and the pinky on the bottom. Again, do that repeatedly until you can do it cleanly and accurately, and then get that grace note nice and speedy. Then we're going to have another note change right there. Boom, back to E. Yeah, it's a tricky little section right here. This might take you more than a few minutes to sort out. That's okay, worth the effort. And then finally, we're going to go up to an F, which is the highest note that we can play with a G grace note. You can't play a G grace note on high G or high A because it's not available to us. So the highest note on this page is an F. So from E to F, that one's fairly straightforward. We're going to lift both on the top hand, leaving the thumb on, and lowering that pointer. I'm going to go ahead, again, get this metronome going at 60 and try all the way through the first 3 measures or bars to that F. Ready? Go. We're going to do the same idea now in reverse. We're going to go down for a note and then down another note, back up 1, then down and down again, up 1, down and down again, so on and so forth, all the way till we make it down to low G before rising back up to an A at the end. But you can see we've done almost all of these declining grace note changes already with the structure of the first part of this exercise. So I'm going to start now at the end of the 3rd bar on that G grace note to F, and I'm going to just play through the rest of the exercise with the metronome. So this is on beat 4, so I'll say 1, 2, 3 with this and start on beat 4. So 1, 2, 3. The only notes that came to mind that we didn't already address, B down to A, you'll lift just one finger, the G grace note, both down for the A. And then around low G, you'll lift again from low A, G grace note to low G, one up, both down, this time with the pinky. And then to go from low G up to A, you'll have to raise your pinky and your grace note. And then lower that grace note. And again, we want to make sure that they come up together. If you hear, I call that the chicken noise. You want to make sure that the finger you're raising for the note change lifts at the exact same moment as the grace note itself. Now, something we want to look out for is what I call the lift and switch, and it's something we want to avoid if at all possible. The lift and switch is where you lift just the grace note itself. So let's say we're going from B to C. If you're on B and you lift this G grace note, and then on the way of this finger coming down, you switch to C, it tends to make the grace note a little big, one, and two, that's audible even in the grace note, and it can turn it from a nice cha percussive sound to a that's not quite as interesting to listen to, or it's certainly not as bagpipey. So let's try to avoid, if at all possible, to lift and switch. When we're reading the music, a way to think about it, rather than reading it straight across, it might be useful to think about you're going from, say, B to C with a G grace note, rather than B, G grace note, C. If all you have is the information of the G grace note, that's not quite enough to actually tell you all the fingers you need to move. You have to be informed about where you're going with any of these grace notes if, well, you're going to lift the proper fingers at the right time. So going to line 3, we're now going to be starting on a low G, and we're going to be skipping a note this time. So we're going from G to B with a G grace note, to D with a G grace note, to F with a G grace note. So we're actually skipping some notes. Then we're going to jump all the way back down to low A, and then go from low A to C with the G grace note, and then to E with the G grace note. That's all the combinations of going up by jumping a note. Then we'll jump up to F and then head down to a D, going down by skipping a note with a G grace note, of course, then going down to a B with a G grace note, then going down to a G with a G grace note. Then we'll jump again back up to E, then to C with a G grace note, and to low A with a G grace note. So with all of these, we're largely moving in what are called thirds, the interval of a third, which is 2 notes apart. So you're on a note, that would be 1. The next note up would be 2. This would be 3. So from low G, G grace note to B, this one could be tricky because you got to move these 2 bottom fingers together. So if you find that this bottom finger is dragging, and there's something like that going on, and that you can hear that extra low A in there, think about doing a few explosive motions with just that ring finger off the chanter to see if we can get maybe just a little bit more dexterity in it. You don't have to worry about blowing through the chanter when you're doing this exercise. So from low G, we're going to raise 3. Again, top pointer finger and the bottom 2 all at the same time. Lower that one for the B. Then B to D with a G grace note. This time we're going to raise, again, 3 fingers, 1 on the top, 2 on the bottom. But this time, 2 are coming down. We're going to lower both the grace note finger and the pinky, because again, the pinky has to be down for a D. Again, do the finger mouth, do that a few times with big, open, clean motions, and then get that to be a nice, chirpy, small, percussive G grace note. Now, we have the exception that I talked about earlier. We have D, G grace note to F. This is one that if you're going to not drop the chanter, you actually have to keep a finger down that I otherwise would not keep down. This is where you can't lift absolutely everything. So if you want to go from D to an F properly following the rules that I've laid out so far, you'd be having to raise your middle finger on top, your ring finger on top, and your pinky on bottom. If you do that and you have to raise your G grace note, well, you're left with just your thumbs, and that's not going to work. The chanter's going to fall. I'm having to balance it on my shoulder and chin here. So what are we going to do to get around that? From D, we're going to raise the top 3. Don't get me wrong, this is not the most stable position, but when it's in your mouth, it's actually quite a bit more stable. And we're going to leave that pinky down for right now. Then from here, we're going to lower the top pointer for F and the bottom 3 while switching our pinky. And you should be able to do this with some good, clean, smooth motions. We shouldn't have to be like moving our hands quickly to try to catch anything. Try that quite a few times. This one might take an hour, 2 hours, or more, but it's a common note change in the tune Amazing Grace, and if you wanted to learn how to play that, boom, there's a card right up there for that. But in that tune, that D, G grace note to F change happens 7 times, so it's definitely worth your while sorting it out right now. When you can play it good, clean, and slowly, try to make that grace note change more percussive. Let's try the first 4 notes of line 3. Ready, go. So from here in the exercise, we're going to jump to actually from F to low A. That's relatively straightforward. You're actually just going to raise the 1 and then lower all 3. So bottom hand doesn't actually have to move when going between F and low A. Now for low A to C with a G grace note, we're going to raise the 2 on the bottom for the C. Pinky's not coming down quite yet, remember that. But we're also going to raise that G grace note. So all 3 of those coming up together, and then 1 each, top pointer, bottom pinky down for that C. And again, when you've sorted that out cleanly and slowly, time to speed it up. Then we have a C to E with a G grace note. This is somewhat similar to the D that we did in the last exercise, but a little bit easier because at least the pointer finger gets to stay down and help stabilize the chanter. So you're on C, you're going to have to raise both the pinky and the top ring finger for the E, and of course the G grace note is the top pointer finger, so those come up, and then to lower to an E, it'll be the top pointer and the bottom, middle, and ring coming down. And as before, when that's good, clean, and accurate, speed it up. Now let's try the first 2 bars of this exercise. So ready, go. And you can see the note at the end there is a half note, meaning we'll hold it for 2 full beats, that E, at the end of the second measure. From here, we're going to go back up to an F. We've already done that note change in the exercise above. So again, quickly, 2 up, 1 down. Then from here, we're going to do F to D with the G grace note. This is similar to what we did earlier, but now is one of the only times we're actually going to initiate a lowering motion so that you can support the chanter. So from F to D with the G grace note, we're going to start pinky down, everything else up now except the thumb. So now you have your 2 thumbs and your bottom pinky. Now you're in a position to lower that top hand to a D. That one's a little bit tricky, I know, but I know you can do it. Just take your time, get it sorted out, get your brain wrapped around it, and when you can, speed it up. Then D to B, 1 up each. You got your top pointer, your bottom pinky down to a B. So your middle and pointer down on the bottom, along with, of course, the top pointer on the top. And then B to low G with a G grace note, 1 up, everything down. Low G to E with the G grace note, we'll have to raise our bottom pinky and the top ring finger to go to an E, and of course with the top pointer finger for the grace note itself. 3 total fingers coming up, but only 1 finger coming down. Make sure everything's coming up together smartly. Bump, bump. E to C, again, quite a few fingers, but not too bad. We're going to have to raise the middle and ring on the bottom and the top pointer all together from E, and then lower the top pointer, ring, and pinky, boom, for that C. And then G grace note from C to A, you're going to raise your bottom pinky, because it's not on for the A, and the top pointer finger at the same time, and then lower top pointer finger and the middle and ring on the bottom for that A. Let's try all of line 3 together. So ready, go. Don't worry about the metronome and don't worry about the percussiveness of your G grace notes until you can get all of the finger motions down clean and accurate. It's been said that speed is never the desired goal. Accuracy is the goal. And when you are accurate, the speed will come along. So while we do eventually need these to be quick and percussive, it's more important right now that they're clean. But understand that you need to dial them down. We don't want our grace notes to be... When you can hear the tonality fully of the note, it really gets in the way of hearing the music that we're trying to make. So in time, we need to get these grace notes dialed down. I have a video right up here you can check out where I talk about the percussive nature of grace notes and why it's so important. So take a look at that. All right, we're going to keep on trucking. Now we're on line 4. This is now going up by 2 notes. So we're actually going up a fourth this time. So we're skipping 2 full notes. We're going from G to C, then A to D, B to E, C to F. So G grace note to G to begin with. And then for that G grace note to C, this one, your pinky gets to stay down this time. You're going to raise the middle 2 on the bottom and the pointer finger, of course, for that G grace note and lower just that G grace note. Then from here, we're going to go down G grace note to A. We already did that above, so we won't review that again. That's going down a third. But now we're going to go A, G grace note to D. This time we're going to raise all 3 on the bottom with that pointer, again, all at the same time. These to get you to the D, that for the grace note. And then we're going to lower the grace note and the pinky to get to that D. Then again, we're going to do a G grace note down to a B. Again, that's just skipping 1 note, so we've already reviewed that again in the exercise above. So now B to G grace note to E. On this guy, we're going to be on B. We're going to raise just some fingers on the top hand because nothing has to raise on the bottom hand yet. So from B to E, we're going to raise the top ring finger to get to that E and the top pointer finger, again, together. And then we're going to lower the top pointer and bottom ring for a proper E. Then we'll go down with the G grace note to a C. And then here, C, G grace note to F. This one, again, a little awkward, lots of fingers coming off, but not as bad as that D to F that we dealt with already because you have the stability of that bottom pointer finger that doesn't need to move. So from C, we're raising these 3, the bottom pinky, top ring, and top middle for F, and the pointer finger for the G grace note. Then from here, we'll lower the G grace note finger and the middle and ring on bottom for a proper F. Let's go ahead, turn this metronome on, and try the first 2 measures of line 4 here. Ready? Go. Now we're going to do that same thing in reverse. We're going to start with a G grace note on F and then do a G grace note back to C. It's just the inverse of the last very note change we did. We're going to, again, 2 up on bottom, 1 up on top, all together, down to a C. Then we're going up a third. Again, we've reviewed that in line 3 to an E, so we won't talk about it here. We're going now E, G grace note to B, so E, top pointer, bottom ring finger up, because again, for a B, that doesn't need to be down, and that's our G grace note. And then from here, just the top hand's coming down to close to a proper B. G grace note up from B to D. Again, we've already reviewed that. Moving on, we're doing D to A with a G grace note. That's going to be the bottom pinky up for the A, top ring finger up again for the G grace note. This finger's getting a lot of exercise today. And then we're lowering top pointer, bottom 3 to the A position so that we can sound a low A. Going up again by a third to the C. Already reviewed that, as I've said many times already, so we won't do it again. And then C, G grace note to low G. 1 finger has to come up because you don't have to raise anything else to go to a low G. We just need to raise the grace note itself. And then boom, down to the low G, which is everything. Now let's do that whole line at 60 beats per minute. Ready? Go! Now we're moving on to going up by a fifth, or skipping 4 whole notes. So we're going to start on a low G with a G grace note now to D. So from here, we're going to raise the 3 on the bottom for the D and the top one for that G grace note. So 4 total fingers up, 1 finger down for the D. Then from D, we'll go down to the A. Again, we've already covered that one in the line above. Won't talk about it here. So we will talk about, though, the A, G grace note to E. This one, bottom hand doesn't have to move. We're going to raise the top ring finger to go to an E, and the top pointer finger, because of the G grace note, and then from there, boom, just 1 down to get to that E. Again, avoid that chicken noise. Don't let this one be early up, and avoid the lift and switch. You don't want to lift one and switch down. Both up cleanly together, 1 down. Yes, it feels like it takes a little extra dexterity right now, but it's the most mechanically efficient way to move our fingers, which means it'll be the quickest way, ultimately, that we'll be able to get these grace notes sounding the way we want to. E, G grace note down to B. Again, that's a fourth. We've already covered that. So B, G grace note to F, we're going to raise the whole top hand, these two, the ring and middle, because of the F and the pointer, again, because of the G grace note. And then we'll lower the G grace note finger, that top pointer, and bottom ring finger for a proper F. Let's try those 2 bars. Ready? Go. As with the last several lines, we're now going to start on the high note and work our way down with those same intervals. We'll, in this case, actually do a G grace note just to separate one F to another F, and then go down from F to B with a G grace note. So from there, 2 fingers up, 1 on each hand, the bottom ring finger for the B, top pointer finger for the grace note, and then boom, the 3 down for a proper B. From there, we'll do a G grace note from B to E. Again, already reviewed, so we'll keep on going. E, G grace note to low A. This is all top hand. We'll raise just the pointer finger, only one that needs to come up for the grace note, and then boom, lower both of them for that A. A to D with the G grace note is going up by a fourth, again, dealt with in the last line. So now we're going to wrap up the last new note change on this line, which is D, G grace note to low G. That is 1 finger up, everything down. Because you don't have to lift anything else to go from D to low G, just the grace note itself. And as before, we're just going to do a G grace note to an A at the end to make it sound pretty. Let's try this whole line. Ready? Go. So to start finishing this out, we're going to start now with the G grace note, again on low G, and we're going to jump up a full 6 notes. We're going fully from G to E. We're going to go to the low G, and then we're going to lift the pointer finger for the G, as well as the ring finger and pinky for the E, and then all you have to bring down is that top pointer finger to finish it out. This time, again, there's a chance for if the pinky lifts early or the ring finger lifts early, you can get a couple of those runny notes in there. Try to avoid that. Also, as before, don't lift the grace note by itself. Lift all the fingers that need to come up together smartly. When you can get it good and quick. Then from there, we're going to go down with a G grace note to A. Again, we did that before already, so won't talk about it now. And then from here, low A to F, we're going to raise the ring and middle fingers on the top hand for F and the pointer finger for the G grace note. So all three will come up, and then just one down for the F. Then to go from F with the G grace note down to A, we're going to lift just the one finger for the G grace note and then lower, boom, all three to get from F to A with the G grace note. Then a G grace note up to an E, again, already covered. Here, E, G grace note to low G. We only have to raise one finger, the G grace note finger, and then we're going to lower, boom, everything to low G to get that out. And then we'll just do a G grace note to A at the end to make it sound nice and pretty. All right, let's go ahead and try this whole line now with this metronome at 60. Ready? Go! And there's just one more change. This time we're going up a full 7 notes. We're going to start on low G up to F, the highest note we can even go to with the G grace note from the lowest note on our chanter. G grace note on low G to start. Here we're going to lift the top 3 fingers. Remember the ring finger and middle coming up for the F as well as the pinky, but the G grace note finger as well, as we've done on all of these other ones. So 4 fingers are coming up and then 1 finger is coming down. Again, a chance for a run here. Well, that sounds kind of cool. It's not what we're wanting. So do that a few times until it's good and clean and everything's moving together. Then speed it up. And then we're going to do that same note change. Back down. 1 finger up, everything down. So let's try that with the metronome. Let's go through this whole sheet one more time. I'm going to raise it up to 70 beats per minute, and we're going to take a full measure off between each one of these separate exercises. So again, the first 2 lines are one exercise where we're really just kind of scalically, one note at a time, going up and down. Line 3 is the next exercise where we're skipping 1 additional note, moving up a third. Then line 4 is where we're going up by a 4th. Line 5 is where we're going up by a 5th. Line 6 is where we're going up by a 6th. And line 7 is where we're going up by a 7th. It's I didn't actually mean for that to add up so well, but hey, I'll take it. Let's start from the beginning of this at 70. Ready? Go. Ready? Go! Ready? Go! Ready? Go! Ready? Go! Ready? go! Well, there you go, everybody. Some specific exercises for your G grace notes to isolate those and get them really clean and accurate, quick, crisp, chirpy, percussive, but start with them slow and open. But don't leave them that way. Get them nice and clean and accurate. All of those things, they are a fundamental building block of highline piping. It is the primary way we emphasize notes and give them the illusion of volume, where volume isn't really an option on our instrument. Well, thank you so much for watching, everybody. If you got something out of it, please think about giving the video a like, subscribing to the channel, and commenting below with any thoughts you might have. And if you want to go the extra mile, I also have a Patreon. You'll see names now of folks scrolling up. These are folks that support the channel monthly, and a special shout out to Miss Carrie Tresek, my #1 supporter. But they often get early access to videos and other perks, and there's a lot of new content that'll be coming exclusively to my Patreon members, so stay tuned for more info on that. I also teach Skype and online lessons. Go ahead and head over to www.commandyourbagpipe.com or email me at the address you see right here, and we'll get you going. I'm working with folks from all over the planet, and I hope to work with you soon. I also have a line of Command Your Bagpipe merchandise with things like hoodies and hats and t-shirts, mugs, water bottles. So get yourself some bagpipe merchandise and let the world know that you command your bagpipe. Well, thank you again for watching. I am Matt Willis, and until next time, cheers.